The crackling sound of radio static fills the quiet air, the walls of the black site looming dark and forbidding around you. The unsettling buzz in the machines makes your nerves tingle as you navigate through the shadows, your footsteps echoing as the cold hallway stares at you. A sigh slips past your lips. Of all places you could have ended up, this was hardly a vacation destination you dreamed of. "You're alive?" A sarcastic voice calls out from behind you. Your heart skips. Spinning around, you find the source of the voice, Sebastian Solace, leaning nonchalantly against the doorframe of a small, dimly lit room. "Or am I dreaming?" you murmur, crossing your arms, not sure whether to be impressed or worried by his sudden, eerie appearance. Sebastian smirks, the faintest glint of his luminescent eyes that recall both amusement and annoyance. "If this were a dream, you'd be dead already. Doesn't that sound like a fun scenario?" You arch your brow. "I think I'll pass." "Smart choice," he drawls out, standing fully upright. "So, what's your excuse this time? Looking for something to buy, or is the apocalypse getting to your head?" You raise a hand, brushing away some debris from your clothing. I need some supplies. Seems like things aren't exactly going according to plan." A soft chuckle escapes him, though it's heavy with an undertone of something darker. "Things never go to plan here. But you're still kicking, so I guess I have a tiny bit of respect for that." The words stick in your throat, but you keep your resolve. "You don't seem like the type to give respect for free." "Don't flatter yourself," he replied. "That's a special offer for the desperate souls who wander into this forsaken place. And keep fighting. Might be a side of me you'll learn to love," he adds with a sneer, showing a bit of humor in his sharp tone. There's a glint of something else, though. You can tell it's more to this twisted personality than meets the eye. "Yeah?" You push further, intrigued despite yourself. "And what's the price for that?" Sebastian's lip twists upward in a sly grin. If I told you you'd ruin the fun," he teases, as though almost he, enjoyed toying with you, watching your reaction carefully. "For now, let's just say you can keep your life longer with the right supplies. Maybe enough to unravel the labyrinth of this place, or enough to sell out and leave." The thought runs cold through you. How do you survive a place like this, Sebastian? Something tells me it's not just about surviving the monsters. His unnerving features are slightly hidden in the shadows, his hands casually resting at his sides with this serpent-like physique, his glowing eyes, and he somehow looks even more intimidating than any threat you'd previously encountered in the station of sadness that lurked behind his look. It catches you off guard. He gazes at you, steadily, expression almost unreadable. His lips twitch in contemplation. "You don't really want to know. But maybe in a weird way you're right. Monsters are the easy part." "Monsters are easy to figure out," you'd counter. Your voice was quiet but strong. "The hard part is figuring out which ones pretend to be normal." Sebastian straightens, a dry chuckle escaping him. "Touché?" There's a long silence before Sebastian pulls something from his waist. His movements are fluid and graceful despite his mutilated form. You glance at what's in his hand, and your stomach knots at the sight of the strange, glistening items skewed across the workbench in front of you. Unfamiliar tools, some chemicals, and some various mechanical components that make you wonder what his true role here was. "Well," he starts, leaning his head back against the worn surface, eyes still never leaving you. "Guess I'll give you a deal. Help me with something, and I'll keep your life interesting, and I've got the supplies you need, at a cost." You let his words settle for a moment, processing his offer carefully. "And what's the price?" Does there always have to be a price? He counters with a shrug. I'm just kidding. For you, I'll be generous. He looks over at you, holding your gaze with a strange amount of intensity. All I need is a bit of company and maybe your brain if you're really thinking on your feet like I do. And I'm sure we can find a deal that works with both of us and was worth our time. He tapped his finger on the bench. His dark eyes shimmer in a way that sends chills up your spine. Your heart beats slightly faster, something between excitement and wariness of the offer. Why me, though? Sebastian doesn't answer immediately, his face growing serious for the first time. No reason. Maybe I could use someone who doesn't want to run, who has more will left than most idiots I've seen wander around here. You know, someone like you. There's almost a tenderness in his voice. There's a sharp contrast to his usual venomous tone. The moment feels fleeting, and before you can respond, the playful edge returns to his voice. Don't look too surprised. I've been in worse situations, and I sure know how to use someone. Well, lucky you say with a smile. It tugged at your lips despite the situation. I'm in no position to argue. Sebastian gives you a low chuckle, his eyes narrowing. There's the attitude I was looking for. Glad to have you around. For now. You share one more look, silently acknowledging the dangerous games you're about to play. His cold, dangerous aura and your determination to survive seems to draw you together. More than anything else. You knew the biggest threats, but did you? You found yourself second-guessing yourself. Sebastian seemed to know the ins and outs of this place, so if you thought you knew what the biggest threats were, what did he know? The door slides shut behind you, the shop's dim light casting shadows. You could never tell if Sebastian Solace was just another player in the game or if you were the one being played. Either way, the following days begin to blur together as you traverse the sterile corridors of the Hadal Black site, trying to figure out what exactly you were getting yourself into by sticking so close to Sebastian. He was mysterious, cold, and detached at all times, but underneath it there was something that had been pulling you towards him. And it wasn't just the niche sapphire or the endless stream of bizarre experiments going on. There was something unsettling and familiar in the way that he looked at you, like he could see through you, like he knew things about you that you didn't even know about yourself. The way his gaze lingered when he spoke, how he always kept a hint of amusement in his eyes, even when discussing the grim fate of your surroundings, it made it hard to tell whether he was trustworthy or whether you were just another tool in his twisted, calculated mind. You found yourself both captivated and frightened. You learned that Sebastian's true form wasn't just physical. Sure, his three-armed, aquatic features and those long fins and his eerie glowing eyes were horrifying, but there's something far more sinister behind them, like the mind beneath them. The more time you spent, the clearer it became that he had spent years, maybe even centuries, surviving and calculating in a space so void of empathy that the only cruelty and it only held power. He'd taken to helping you more than you expected. There were moments where he'd hand you tools from his shop without even saying a word, only offering a cryptic comment here and there, but you'd just stare at the strange items. More often than not, he'd catch your gaze, quirking with a half smirk when you looked back at him, making you feel as though you were being assessed, and today was no different. Today you entered his space, the dim light flickering through the broken ventilation systems, casting a distorted shadow against the concrete floor. He was leaning in his chair, as usual, scanning some mechanical readouts on the worn-out screen, his strange anglerfish lure subtly pulsing above his head. You need something today, YN? Sebastian's voice drifted lazily over to you, not looking up from his screen. His words were still sharp. Or are you just here to marvel at my unmatched beauty again? Your lips quirk in amusement. Even in his arrogance, he gets under your skin sometimes. I'm here for something else this time. Another supply run. He finally looks up, his eyes narrowing just slightly. That's the only reason you're here. His question isn't accusing you, but rather curious, like he's testing you. You keep your expression neutral, although his gaze makes your heart pound unexpectedly faster in your chest. You tell yourself it's just the situation you're in. Dangerous, mind-numbing, but it's hard to ignore just how each encounter with him feels like one thread being pulled taut. I could be looking for more than that. Sebastian's smirk widens, an unsettling kind of amusement flickering in his eyes. What? Now you want a deeper conversation? Or are you just looking for someone to humor you? You aren't sure why you're pressing your luck by teasing him, but something just tells you it's too late to back off. Humor might be all I get down here. His eyes darken, and he steps closer. The dim lighting around him seems to bend, making his silhouette take on a more otherworldly form. Humor, huh? He repeats, almost tasting the word as if playing with it. Are you telling me that I don't provide something extraordinary? Your pulse quickens, part fear, part anticipation, but you maintain his gaze, refusing to back down. You definitely know how to keep things interesting. For a long moment, neither of you say anything. The only sound is the hum of the machine systems, the distant thrum of the black site failings into structure. It's strange, familiar, but also foreign. The silence isn't uncomfortable. It's just heavy, laden with growing tension you don't really know how to address. There's something else, he mutters after a long beat. His voice is so quiet that you have to strain to hear him. He leans against the workbench with his arms crossed and the glow of his anglerfish lure casting an eerie light over his face. His gaze lingers on you like he's trying to say something, like he's trying to decide whether or not that he's actually going to speak. For a moment you say something, almost, just to break the silence, but something holds you back. It stalls fear in you. Sebastian's whole existence was about ambiguity, a dangerous type of manipulation that you were still learning how to navigate. So, you finally break the quiet. What's the deal today? Got any supplies that might help me get to the bottom of this place? A rare glint of uncertainty flickers his face as he strides over to the shelf full of items you couldn't name. He hands you a vial of something glowing with an odd liquid. This should help you with your stamina, make it through the longer runs. Your eyes narrow as you glance up between him and the vial. Is this a gift or are you just setting me up? It's not a gift, it's just a friendly exchange. He tried. His grin was half teasing, half menacing. His words carried that same detached, chilling edge that they always did. But there was something underneath the facade, something real. You get the feeling he could easily become your greatest ally or your most dangerous enemy. And I like to keep you on your toes, YN. You take the vial carefully, not really sure whether it was making the right decision, but the only way to get out of this twisted web was forward. Every part of you screamed that the situation was one mistake after another, but it was too late to walk away now. Sebastian's gaze flickers to you again, his expression unreadable for the briefest of moments. You sure you're ready? He asked quietly, something flickering between the edges of his voice, but you reply anyway. Yeah, you reply, turning away, determination in your steps. I have no other choice, do I? Not really, he says softly, but chuckles, his stoic edge returning. Welcome to my world, YN. Survive long enough and maybe you'll understand. Before you leave, his words stick with you. Just don't get too attached, yeah? The light-hearted tease is there, but something underneath it is darker. You leave, the vial safely tucked away in your pack, and yet you can't shake the feeling that something has shifted between the two of you. It might have been the quiet look in his eyes, or the odd tenderness he had shown, or the strange loyalty he had, but whatever it was, it seemed to anchor you closer to him. But you knew you couldn't ignore it forever. But one thing was certain, this dangerous dance with Sebastian had only just begun.